Okay, trying something new here. I have in the past. You have to forgive my appearance. I didn't really groom myself in preparation for this very much. Um, Here's a slightly different look for my place. I am in my garage. I've done some videos here before, but not so much. I think I did a couple like performance things. Um, and did some still frames. I think I did some private videos just for uh, people to get a tour of my garage. Well, maybe they were public. I don't even recall. But here I am in my garage studio, quote unquote. It's a place that has no air conditioning and no heat. Because I'm on the ground floor, though, the summer's pretty much fine. It doesn't really get disgustingly warm in here. Maybe on the hottest days of the years you wouldn't want to be out here, but the summer's generally okay. Maybe it gets muggy. Um, I'm pretty much protected by the sun. I have no windows, and I also own the only microphone I have is the one that's in the webcam, and I know if I start touching the webcam, it's going to make a lot of noise, but I'm going to do it anyway. Um, so really, the only time of the year that I really can't spend much time in here is when you get deep into autumn and it gets really cold, and the winter time when it's freezing. Because the garage doors aren't really tightly sealed. But, there's a long stretch of a good 2/3 to 3/4 of the year that I can be out here doing stuff. This was initially the only place where I recorded my music. And the interesting thing, which I really didn't prepare, I didn't bring a copy of it. I have a new CD out, which I will talk about in another video at great length. It's basically comprised of two very long pieces. One's 24 minutes plus, one's 27 minutes plus. The interesting thing about it, though, is the 24-minute piece section of it was actually recorded in my old home before I moved 4+ years ago, while the other track on there has been recorded at my new place in the last 2 years. So it's really kind of spanning my two lives. I kind of put a big division in there between my old place and my new place. And also the recording methods were different. I still do record out here, specifically the percussion stuff, the drums, for the most part, not the hand drums like this. This I can carry into my other in my bedroom where I have my keyboard set up. I had the keyboards out here. Keyboard used to be here on this back shelf here, actually. It was quite handy to play. And I used to record two places. Into the computer. I'm going to move the thing here. Into the computer, but also into this big mixing board. So there's my mixing board, which, well, it's not just a mixing board. It is a hard disk. A hard disk recorder, but it's old technology. And the hard disk on here is about 60 gigs, maybe. And guess what? That 60 gigs got all filled up when I made my album Impressions of a Year. So this whole setup here contains my original, 16 plus tracks, recordings of the Impressions of the Year album that I put out in 2012. Still in here. But it's all filled up. So I can no longer, unless I erase something, really record into here. And I do have some various partially completed things in here. So I got maybe a little bit of space left that I could add things to. But I did install this computer. It's a Windows 7 computer, but it still works great. So that's where the recorded music now goes into. but this is now being used as the mixing board. So all the instruments get plugged in here. Music goes into the computer and software, which I've been learning for the last couple of years, and part of the recording at least goes in here. I used to have all my keyboards and guitars and stuff go in here. Now I do the keyboards and guitars in my other room. So on the shelf here, this is a garage that I never parked my car in. There's a 12-string Martin guitar that I don't play anymore because it's too difficult, but it's kept in pretty good condition. I probably didn't use it after 1983. So it sits there, and there's an old computer there. This was my old computer from my bedroom that broke, but it's got a lot of music in there and stuff like that, so I don't want to throw it out until I get everything transferred out. I have a printer here. And the reason that I'm doing videos now here, well, let me show you the rest. Here's a percussion stand. There's a percussion stand there. It's got a lot of percussion instruments on and some of my LP collection. Some more percussion instruments, and there's the drums over there in the corner. And on those various shelves, there's a lot of other instruments, mostly small percussion things. I actually have bins, entire bins, filled with small handheld percussion instruments. So it's not a big place, but it's bigger than the room that I used to have to use for my old home. I had a very, very small bedroom that was used for a recording studio that all this stuff was in. So the reason I'm doing videos here in my garage, well, it's twofold. Most of my videos have been recorded in my other room, and you get the same visual sight for every single video. And there's nothing I can do about that because there's only one place I can place the camera. But also, when I brought a lot of my instruments and my keyboards and things like that into the other main part of the house and started recording there, I began to spend a lot less time out here doing music, doing things. Now that's made a turnaround because 6 months ago I bought a new computer. That's a Windows 10 computer. And it doesn't run many of my old programs that I need in order to do things like do the basic layout for CD booklets and things like that. So that caused me to move back out here, copy those programs into my old Windows 7 computer where they work fine, which is why I have a printer out here as well. And so I've had to do the booklet creation and printing from here in the garage. And thankfully, that's something that I discovered when the weather was decent, not in the dead of winter when it's impossible to sit out here. So I've been spending a lot of time here, and if you notice, there's no windows here. And this is a kind of interesting place. Like a lot of professional studios are, or home studios even, or even practice studios. My buddy Glenn that I've played with for years, for many years, had rented out a storage facility where people used to store their furniture and things like that. And he turned it into a music studio, a big studio room. So it was very narrow on the sides, but it was a long, almost like a big long hallway. And naturally, it didn't have any windows either. And the door in front was very thick and heavy. So when you went inside, you could hear nothing coming from outside. And you had no idea what time of the day or night it was. Somebody could be standing right outside the door talking and you wouldn't hear them because they had these thick doors in the storage facility for each individual unit. He even had an electrician come in so that in the summertime it would be bearable, and he put in an air conditioner. He had his drum kit set up there. He had a couch that he could even take naps on. He had tons of percussion instruments. His brother, who played guitar, had amplifiers in there. He even had a small entertainment center. And we still talk about it. He had to give it up a number of years ago. But we still talk about the studio because it was like a magical place. And he would go there and sometimes be there all night long playing because he could play at 2 or 3 in the morning. It was relatively soundproofed, but even if he'd be thrashing and smashing away at a drum kit at 3 o'clock in the morning, there was nobody there anyway. If anybody was there, they would be storing their furniture. They wouldn't care that some guy was playing drums somewhere. And it was far enough away from any homes that no one could hear them. So he could go in there any time of night and day. And he would take naps on the couch in there. He had an entertainment center. He had a television. He didn't have any television reception, but he set up a videotape player. This is in the days just a little bit before DVDs came out, I guess. And he had a whole selection of videotapes that he would keep there. Most of them were musical lessons, actually, done by well-known artists. Some of them were, I think, just music performances and things for him to watch when he wasn't in the mood to play. But it was very much, this place very much reminds me of his studio. Because, when I'm in here and I close the door off to the main part of my condo, I'm totally unaware of what's going on in there. It could be burning down for all I know. And there's a timelessness here. There's only the one light. And it's fairly bright. I have and do at times turn it off because the light from the computer is often good enough, if I'm just improvising or something like that. But it's an interesting place because there's a timelessness here. I don't know if it's early morning, late at night. There's very little to give that away, even though I share a driveway. And if my immediate next door neighbor does come or go, I can hear his door slam from in here. But that doesn't mean much because sometimes he goes at 2 or 3 in the morning and 8 o'clock in the morning and it's very odd hours. So there's no real giveaway as to what time it is. Now in the past before I had a lot of my musical world set up in the main part of the condo, I'd come out here and jam. Even at odd hours of the night, I can get away with it, not with the percussion stuff, but I'd sit here with an acoustic or electric guitar. No need for amplifiers. I have huge amplifiers on the floor, actually. Actually, this right here is the bottom part of an amplifier. It's fairly large, but I don't use it anymore, and I haven't used it since the 1980s. Because everything gets plugged directly into the board here, and you put headphones on, or I have some small speakers here. I have some monitor speakers, which is actually what the camera's resting on, and I could listen through there, and it's not really loud enough to disturb anyone. And that's it. That's my world in the garage. And for a few months, it was only about a half to 3/4 of a year ago that I finally started I brought my keyboard and some of the percussion instruments, and I started recording in the main part of my condo. But now with this Windows 10 computer that fails to run many of the programs that I need to create my CDs and stuff like that, I found myself out here spending a lot of time. And since my condo is small, it's not really so bad. It's almost like, it's like an alternate room that I don't have. And I'm finding I'm enjoying my time here. And why am I doing this? I don't know. I don't know. I'll probably be doing more, and occasionally we'll attempt to maybe film me farting around here doing various these maybe off the cuff musical things. And I've decided that since I do have a lot of my records stored here, I figured every time I do a video, I'm going to go and make a random selection from my LPs that are sitting out here and just see what I pull out. I'm not going to look first. I'm just going to choose one LP, and at the end of the video, and I'm going to do that now. See what it is. Well, this is a weird coincidence. Klaus Schulze's X, which stands for 10. I swear I didn't choose this in advance. Today's August 4th. And I could do a whole video about the weird coincidences I've had since I discovered the VC about 2 years ago. And this is just another one. This is one of the first albums that I bought by Klaus Schulze. I bought it as a new release. When did it come out? 80 or 79 or 78? Yeah, I can't tell. So I think it was 79. There's two weird coincidences here, but I'll tell you what happened earlier today. Earlier today, I was watching YouTube videos, and for some reason I went to review a video made by my good buddy Jeff, Vinyl Spin. And over 2 years ago, I think it was July in 2015, he did a comprehensive two-part kind of overview on Klaus Schulze's albums. And I think the first part ran about 35 minutes or so. And I had watched it initially when it came out, didn't realize it was 2 years ago. And today, I just happened to decide I'm going to watch this again, thinking that he had made it months ago, maybe 6 months or so ago. But then when I looked at the YouTube date, I saw that it was like July 2015. Like, wow, that was over 2 years ago that I watched that for the first time. So I'm watching the video. And one of the albums that he pulls out that speaks about at length and mentions that it's one of his favorites is this very album that I just randomly selected out of my stack there. I had no idea what the album was. The spine's not even facing me. The open side is facing me on the shelf that I selected it from, which is why this is a weird coincidence. But the real big weird coincidence, and I wouldn't have known this if Jeff hadn't mentioned it in his video. Jeff mentioned Klaus's birthday, which I never knew before. Totally coincidentally happens to be today, the very day when I went back and reviewed this video, August 4th. No idea. I never knew that was his birthday. I don't even recall hearing that the first time I watched Jeff's video 2 years ago, though I may have just forgotten it. I may have heard it. Total coincidence that it turns out today is his birthday, and I sent an email to Jeff. I said, Jeff, this is really weird, buddy. But I went back and I watched this 2-year-old video where you mentioned that Klaus's birthday is August 4th. Totally at random, I just decided to watch his video today. I haven't been watching any other Klaus Schulze related videos, nothing like that. And it just so happens today's August 4th. And this was one of the albums that he spoke about. I said, that's a weird coincidence. And he said that it's actually Klaus Schulze's 70th birthday. Klaus Schulze is an important artist to me. He's one of the first artists I got into that was away from the mainstream rock music. I kind of discovered the electronic thing before I discovered like the ECM guys, though the ECM guys followed not long after. But Klaus Schulze was the first non-mainstream really guy that I got into. And I really kind of experimented with. You couldn't hear the music in him. This is the late 70s. 77, 78, you couldn't go online and get any samples of the music. I knew nobody who knew him. I just happened to always see his albums in the bins, in the import bins, and I always went through the import bins. And Time Wind was one of the first ones I bought. And at the time, he had 9 albums out. I didn't know that at the time. I know, looking back now, I know. And during the next year or so, I picked up a few more of his first 9 albums. And then this one came out as a new release. And it was the first new album that Klaus had put out since I discovered him, since I got into him. And the first Klaus album I bought as a new release. So as soon as it hit the shores of the U.S., which I don't know how long it took after it came out in Germany, because this is on the Brain label. This is the first Klaus album I bought as a new release. So, interesting, huh? Interesting coincidence. So, I'm going to do more of these videos, whether you like them or not, from the garage, Tales from the Garage, just to do something maybe a little bit different from me talking in my main space, which I'm sick of looking at, and you all probably are as well. And I'll talk about whatever's going on. I don't know. Maybe I'll do my video where I'm talking about my latest recording in here instead of in my main room. I don't know. But that's it, guys. Thanks for watching, if you have. And I'll be back soon.